Please help me welcome my guest today, Cathy Andorfer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here to have a discussion with you. I know you're very busy, you're a medical affairs leader, and we're going to be talking about your book here, The Art of Excellence. That's a lot of questions going to be coming from that.
Excellent.
And you wrote something here, building a rock star career. And that's why we're going to be talking about Medical Science Liaison. The first question I want to ask is, how do you describe a rock star medical science liaison, MSL?
Sure. I think the best way to describe it is someone who continues to strive to get better, right? Layers on foundational skill after foundational skill until finally you arrive at a point where you're deeply knowledgeable, not only of your material, but also of how to engage with people within your organization and external to your organization. So how do you figure out how to provide the most value within and without your organization?
Good, good. Thank you so much. That's really good. To provide the highest value that you can. That's very important. And in your book, you also mention the nuances of MSL career. What do you mean by that, based on your experience?
Yeah, I think one of the things that surprises people who come into the MSL role without knowing too much about it is the extreme variety of what you do on a daily basis. And again, in order to get the role, you need to have built a very strong scientific or clinical background in order to get hired. You have to be very good talking about science, but that's only one small portion of what allows you to be good at the job. So the nuances are more, how do you build a relationship with someone very quickly so that they trust you enough to listen to and appreciate the science that you bring to them? How do you get them to open the door to you in the first place or to invite you back? There's a lot of those subtleties of human behavior that are so important to succeeding in the role. And that takes time and it takes practice to get good at. So that's why I call them nuances. They're small, they're subtle, but as you continue to gain mastery in them, you can get into that rock star level in your career.
Wow, wow, interesting, interesting. There's something that you mentioned now that also feel very important. Building trust. You have to build the trust over time. And part of this is interacting with KOLs, key opinion leaders.
Yes.
Based on your experience, how have you been able to build this kind of trust with key opinion leaders?
Well, that's where the nuances come in, right? Because every opinion leader has a different mindset, they have different needs, and they have a different way in which they like to receive information. They have a different level of baseline trust in working with industry, right? So you have to figure out quickly where that person is and then adjust accordingly. So the building of trust is, respecting their time, understanding how they feel about industry in general, and understanding what their needs are so that you can bring them quick value. So it is often a many layered, multiple time interaction, right? You usually can't meet someone for the first time and then just data dump on them. I mean, you can do that, but that's not going to be successful in building a trusted relationship that has them listen and hear what you have to say, and then also invite you back into talk with them again.
Good, good. Thank you. We're probably still going to go into key opinion leader interaction very well. One of the things that I also find very interesting in your book, The Art of Excellence, is the 4 Ps you mentioned about the foundation of medical science liaison. What are these 4 Ps? Can you quickly mention it to us?
Yeah, so as I was describing what a rockstar MSL is, it's built on these foundations. And I tried to come up with how to easily define that. And I think the relationship building, so people skills is one of them, and also planning. And those two, it's pretty easy to understand, right? You have to be able to have good relationship skills in order to get that trust going. And then also, because what an MSL does means you're usually flying all over a territory, a country, you're having to do a lot of logistics, setting up appointments, taking time to learn your science, work with your cross matrix counterparts. There's a lot of different moving parts in your job. So you have to get good at planning. So those two are pretty obvious, I think. But then the other two I have are poise and persistence. And poise is because oftentimes you go into a meeting with a thought leader, first time you're ever meeting them. You have no idea of their personality. You have no idea how they feel about industry and all those things. And so you walk in, and sometimes you may catch someone at a really bad moment, or they may ask you the toughest question you've ever heard and you don't have the answer. So, how do you maintain your personal comfort and calm in a situation where you are very uncomfortable? And that's where that poise and the nuance of building your personal poise is so important. And then the final piece, P, is persistence. And that's because there's oftentimes doors will be closed to you, or no one's answering your emails, you don't know how to get access to someone. That's a very important person for you to engage with. And you have to keep not taking no for an answer. How do I find a workaround? How do I get creative and innovative in finding a way to get an introduction to someone? Or, there's also big changes that can happen within a company. So how do you continue to persist in your resilience and grow in your job?
Wow, interesting. Thank you so much. So looking at these people skills, poise, planning, and persistence, when you first started your journey, and also now that you're a leader now, which one of these come very easy to you, and which one did you struggle with when you were
Oh, that's a great
doing?
question. I would say planning, because I was not prepared when I started as an MSL for that sheer volume of things that I was in charge of. I had come from a big academic career, and I was used to, there's a certain set of things that you do, and but a lot of times you're doing it in the same place and with the same people. So there's a certain routine that you can get into, versus when you become an MSL, you're usually working from your own home. You're now fully in charge of your schedule. Yes, you may have some meetings on the calendar for internal things, but then the rest of it, it's up to you. You have to figure out when you're doing your self-study. You have to figure out, when am I reaching out to set up the appointments? How far down the line can I go? Oh, shoot, this new interaction opportunity came up, but I was going to be in this state. How do I get from this state to this state and back to that state so I can cover everything I need to do? Oh, but also keep my family life and everything going on. So for me, I think that planning and logistics piece was the biggest, one of the big hurdles.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Planning and how you interact with people. So something about interaction with the KOL that you mentioned in your book is the different in personality style of people, introvert and extrovert. So based on your experience as MSL and also a leader now, how would you compare somebody who is called extroverted MSL and somebody that can be called introverted MSL? It seems that there's a difference between the two, but then which one would you think is most effective in quotes, and which
You're
one?
trying to trick me here. Yeah, so I would say, first of all, I think everybody is on the spectrum, right? So we have the buckets of extrovert and introvert, but we all live somewhere between the two. And oftentimes as we grow up, we can flex and grow into and shift where we are. For instance, I am definitely an introvert, but there's a lot of people who would find that surprising because they know me now, not me like 30 years ago, right? It was a very different me. So we can all grow and flex. And so I don't think there's any one bucket we all distinctly fit in. And I absolutely will never say that one is better or worse than the other. We just really, it's how you recover from an engagement. So for an introvert, meeting someone new takes a lot of energy, and they feel slightly drained by that process. So sometimes people with that tend to avoid interactions because they know subconsciously, at least, that there's an energy cost to novel situations, meeting new people, talking a lot, all those things, versus that extroverts get filled up by meeting people. They love to engage with new people. They get energized by that. And so I don't think there's it's no different skill sets. It's just how you learn to take care of yourself. Obviously, introverts have to figure out how to get themselves over that hurdle and I'd really rather not talk to this stranger. So that's certainly something they have to solve for. But then an extrovert working in a remote situation, oftentimes, you're at your home office, you're like, I need human interaction here, right? How do you keep yourself energized? How do you keep yourself focused on the quiet work that needs to get you to your scientific excellence, while also filling up your own like happy bucket of energy? So I think they're all amazing. Everyone can be an excellent MSL as long as you understand yourself. I think that's where that nuanced excellent piece comes in. Like, who are you? Once you understand that, then you can figure out how to elevate your skill set and use who you are. What is your personal special sauce? And that's how you'll be successful. It's introvert, extrovert, everybody's amazing. They can all make amazing MSLs.
Good, good. Thank you so much. And something that you said in your book that I totally agree with. For MSL, you should expect to have 90% listening to and 10% talking. So that gives introverts a little bit of advantage as regards to that, because extrovert probably just want to talk, and that's not always best for communication. So I agree with you.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah. And we have Anna Roselio. Thanks for the opportunity to learn from the MSL career. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to be highlighting a couple of these as we go. So now that we've agreed that there's a spectrum and introvert, extrovert, none is better than the other. Yeah, but for people that are introverts, based on your experience, you wrote about certain things that you challenge them to do in your book so that they can become effective too. So based on your recommendation, which one of them would you came to you easily? Which one of them would you say is the most effective for you as a person?
Oh my, well, because I am a recovering introvert, or learning how to step as far out of my introversion as possible, and it's been a many decades long process. I think I've used every one of them. Like, those tips come from things that I have done and used to get out of or to become more on the extrovert spectrum. So I think, again, to me, it's that energy piece, right? Learning that, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I just happen to sometimes hesitate to go talk to someone new because I know that there's going to be an energy cost, or I'm not that person who's going to walk into a big crowded room and just like suddenly everybody knows who I am and I'm their best friend. I will be that way by the time I'm done with the room, but it's not going to happen in the first 20 seconds. I'm a like one by one, one by five, like a smaller group of people, and just trying those types of tips and tricks. And I think the thing for me is I'm always using my life as an experiment. It's like, okay, I know here's a thing I struggle with. What can I do to make a hypothesis and control most of the variables and see what happens, right? So the tips of I can leave an event as soon as I have done X, Y, and Z. So I have to talk to 3 new people I've never met, and then I can go. And what often happens when I do something like that, I'm talking to 3 people. Now I'm energized, I'm actually excited, and they've introduced me to 10 more people. And now I'm in a place that I didn't think I would be in before I walked in that door. So it's kind of just continuously kind of gamifying my life in a way.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can imagine what that looks like in a conference, in a very big conference for an introvert. You don't know who to talk to. It's easy if you are already MSL and you have the role already. You don't have to talk to anybody, as long as you can go back to your company and say, well, this is what I learned from the conference. They know they didn't waste their dollars, right? But for people that are not MSL yet,
okay,
so we want to get into that conversation. For you, I read in your book that you transitioned from academic to industry.
mm-hmm.
And can you walk us through a little bit how you were able to secure your first MSL role?
Sure, but I'd love to go back to your last comment that if you are an MSL and you're at a conference, you can't just go and get the data. Your job is to go actually have those conversations because you want to hear from those thought leaders. How did they take the data? How do they feel? What are their perceptions? So to just go to a conference, sit in a lecture and take your notes, that's only meh as an MSL. A really great MSL is going to get over themselves and work that room and work the people and build those connections and be brave and go up after a speaker has finished and say, hey, I heard you say X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me more? Or, hey, I'm your MSL. Would love to see you when you're back in the office. So you have to dig into those things as an MSL. So that's what I had to say about that.
Yeah,
Now to your question about the academic transition, or did you, sorry, did I cut you off?
yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Transition from academic to MSL. How did you secure your first MSL role?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of an interesting break. I hadn't even known what an MSL was, and that was fairly common, especially about 12 years ago when I got actually started in the role. Even before that, I had never heard of what it was. And then a friend of mine became one and started telling me about how great this role was, and I didn't quite buy it, but he was always very happy and satisfied in his work, and I was enjoying my academic life, but also struggling with funding and just some of the frustrations that anyone who has worked in labs know, and what it means to get funding to keep all those things going. So there were definitely frustrations. And I think I finally just kept somewhere down, he convinced me that this was a great role. And then one day he reached out to me and said, hey, there's an opening in Florida, which is where I was living and still am. Just send me your resume. And for whatever reason, I said, sure. And I submitted it. And because he was my internal connection, they invited me for an interview, and he coached me very much to help me prepare for my presentation and my interview. And I got the job. So it's not the typical story. I think some people have much longer journeys and have it as a goal for many years. And I certainly have helped a lot of people go through that process of getting into the role. But for me, it was kind of just the right day at the right time. And in the process of interviewing, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. But I met all these brilliant people and just started to investigate the role more in preparing for my interview. And I was like, oh, I think I could actually be good at this. And as soon as I went through the process, I knew I wanted to do it if they wanted me, and they did. So it worked out really well.
Wow, good. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. So for the first time MSL, the general advice is go where you get your first offer, right? But then for people that are MSL already, they have to think about the actual biotech company that they have and whether it fits into their career goals and things like that, because that's part of what you stated in your book. So my question is, what are the little tips you can give us, especially for people that are also joining, so that they can know whether they are in the right company for them, or they have to start thinking about moving into a different company that is better fitted for their goals?
Yeah, it's a very personal decision. And only you'll ever know for yourself. And sometimes you won't know if you made the right decision or not. You have to just go with your gut. But for me, I think my first piece of advice is don't run away. Just because things might not feel perfect at the company that you are in doesn't mean it can't be improved. Like, do the self-reflection. What can I change about me and how I'm approaching the role? Do I need to get more skills? Do I need to talk to and connect with other people within the organization so that I can feel more comfortable, feel more connected, get better? I will tell you, first couple months as an MSL are very strange because you're trying to figure out what this new job is. You just need to sort through a lot of things. So have a lot of patience with wherever you are. But always, I like to keep, a filter, a reality filter. Like, how am I doing? What's on me, and what is this? What is it? The company. So that's the first piece of advice is maybe you just need to dig into where you are and dig into your personal growth. And then the other piece is maybe there are people within the organization doing a role that's not an MSL, but something that you would like to do. So that's where I also talk about like building your network within the company, meeting people virtually, in person, and just asking, hey, how did you get into this role? Why do you like it? What would you recommend someone who was thinking about coming into it? What do they need to do? And you may discover that maybe MSLing isn't your favorite role, and maybe there's something else you can do. So I think there's also that as well. And then also, keep an open mind, build your network, learn about other companies, and also think about where you are in your personal life. I think there are times where people really can thrive in a teeny tiny organization where you get to learn all the things, but there's a lot of exposure and you have almost no ability to hide, right? In a bigger organizations, not that I'm ever recommending hiding, but there's just a different level of when you're one of three people, everything is on fire all the time. Versus if you come into an established territory and it's things that are just going on, you're not launching a product, it's a different life cycle. Sometimes people with new children or whatever their life looks like, that's a better fit. They can still bring their best self to that job. It's just a different level of exposure. So, I think you have to do a lot of personal reflection. And I think that's probably what is a theme throughout the whole book is take the time to think about yourself, think about your needs, and just continue to re-explore.
Good. Good. Thank you so much. I think we have one of our guests joining. It's a great talk. Emotional intelligence is very important to learn how to read the room and how to listen to what is said and what is not said. And that's very important.
Yes.
So I can quickly bring up a question from that. So in your own experience, talking to KOLs or interacting within the internal system or external system, are there any situation whereby you felt so strongly that something was said without words and you find out eventually that you were right? Communication without words, you were not sure about it, but then eventually you find out, wow, yeah, I was right. This person just said this thing, but then that's what it meant.
I don't know that I have a big aha example of that, but I think that's one of those things that a good MSL experiences all the time, right? If you're sitting in front of a thought leader and you're asking them questions or you're having a dialogue and you're really listening more than you're talking, you can tell when they say something and you're like, huh, okay, what's the question behind the question? Or why did you ask that? Or why did you say that? And you can kind of, if you're in tune with body language and emotional intelligence, you just know that there's something else there. And then if you're good at your communication, you can just ask them in a way that isn't confrontational, but just like, hey, I sense that there's something you're not saying. What are you not saying? And I think sometimes we can be much more direct in our conversation than people do. And if you do it in a authentic and kind, gentle way, people will give you so much information if you just create the space for them to do so.
Wow, good. Thank you so much. There's something you said in your previous answer, getting to know people, interacting with people when you find yourself in a new organization. And in your book, here you said something, one of my favorite quotes on career advice is life is a contact sport.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a contact sport. What does this statement mean to you?
Yeah, so this book, that quote is also the title of a book. And one of my dear friend mentors in the medical affairs space, he mentioned it to me a long time ago. And I thought it was such a great title because it encompasses what I believe MSL life is. MSL life is a contact sport, meaning that we are always needing to engage with people. It's literally our job, right? We're supposed to go out and engage with the thought leaders and the healthcare community in whatever therapeutic area we're in. And we also need to engage with the people inside our organization. If you're in a commercialized organization, you absolutely need to continue to network and build relations with your commercial colleagues, either those in your regional territory or those at the leadership level and everything in between. You need to be working with your HUR counterparts. And there's so many different people within an organization that the more contact you have with them, the more social capital and network that you'll build. And that will help you, first of all, understand your job better. And again, to that value piece, the more you know who you're working with and for, the more you understand what they need, and therefore the more value you can bring them.
Wow. So communication is very important.
Yes.
So specifically in your book, you said ask people in your organization to recommend names and see if they want to introduce you to those names that they mentioned. Is there any personal story you have around this as to when you actually did it, or when somebody else did that, and what the result eventually led to?
Yeah, so actually, this was a piece of advice that was given to me by a coworker. We had been working in a very small dermatology startup company, and we got acquired by a massive pharmaceutical organization. And coming from our, we were about 200-ish people going into this 80,000 plus organization, not really even understanding the structures, all those different pieces, it was overwhelming. And she recommended, hey, when you come in, like, meet people and then ask them, hey, who are the other 3 people I should get to know? And by using that, then you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall in order to figure out, like, oh, I'll just talk to everybody. Can't do that with 80,000 people, at least not effectively at the start. So build intentionally. One person that you've been introduced to because you were working with them, they can introduce you to 3 more people. And then when you talk with those 3 people, they can introduce you to 3 more. And now you're building an intentional network versus just anybody. And so I did that when I started at that very large company. And I thought it helped me feel very comfortable within the organization and start to understand the structure and just how they were very quickly.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. So still within that context, as another advice you gave in your book, sometimes you may share a connection, but you may not share similar sentiments about that particular connection. Any example? I see that you're smiling a lot.
Well, it's just, like everybody in life, we all have our different opinions about people, and I tend to have very positive opinions about almost everybody. It's just sort of my default state. But every once in a while, say you're at a Congress and you meet someone that you know who knows someone else, and you're just chit-chatting, oh, so-and-so, oh, blah, 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 I think they're great. And they're like, da, da, da. So it's just always to have that lens of not everybody has the same sentiment about people. So just to sometimes be like, oh, I know him too, and then see how they feel and then move, from there.
Okay, good. So that smile means you're not going to give us a personal example.
Oh, heck no.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, I think this is a very clear truth about life. I used to say that when something that is facing another person is probably backing another person, and being able to look the particular person in different angles and give people the benefit of doubt, I think it's something that is very important, because things are not always the way it appears to be. That's the truth.
Yes, but I believe we all have beautiful things to bring to life, and we may not all be understood by one another, but really everybody has something excellent to bring to the table if given the opportunity and the space and the environment to do so.
Good. Thank you. Another thing is also people evolve over time, in which case the kind of mindset somebody might have 10 years ago might not be the same mindset they have now. So just knowing that, well, this might actually be a totally different person altogether, different from the person they were 10 years ago or even 20 years ago.
Yes,
So thank you for sharing that. So one of the things you also mentioned in your book, the art of excellence, is having a bad meeting as a new MSL. How often did you experience this bad meeting in court as a new
Well,
MSL?
yeah, well, there's a whole range of what constitutes a bad meeting, right? I think you can know when you're most prepared and you show up with like, you're on it with the data, you're just personable, you're tuned in to the other person's needs and you just deliver excellence. That's the ideal. And then there's days where, the physician or whomever you're speaking with may ask you a question that's really hard that perhaps you didn't prepare for, or maybe it's just a great question that you don't have an answer to. So you have to have the grace to answer that you don't know in a way that maintains your credibility, right? So sometimes maybe you didn't do a good job of saying that you didn't know, right? Or you just didn't remember a detail that you know that you would know on a different day. Or you walk in and they are in a really bad mood and it has nothing to do with you, but they feel free to take it out on you. Or they treat you like you're wasting their time and they don't understand. They don't know that they're talking to a person with a terminal degree with a lot of experience and knowledge to bring to the table, and they treat you like you're dirt, right? Like that happens for sure. So there's a whole range of what a bad meeting is, and I have had all of them.
Wow. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. I think that's part of what makes you good at the job. And that's
Yeah.
one of the points I put in the book is bad meetings happen to everyone. And
Yeah.
it's what you do after them that matters, right? How do you, or even in it, right? How do you maintain that poise and that resilience to either carry on in the conversation, try to find your way to even it out and get back into a trusted situation? Or how do you exit gracefully? Or if it's something that was a total disaster and you didn't know the answer, how do you learn better? How do you prepare better? How do you learn and grow and evolve from whatever happened? Or who's your lifeline? Who do you call and say, hey, look, I did this thing and I'm embarrassed, or that was crazy, or I don't understand this, and then have that person to talk you down and be like, this is life. Where none of us are perfect, and it's okay, right? It's what do you do next?
Wow, wow. So there's a next aspect of these that you just mentioned. There's an aspect of this you just mentioned now, bad meeting, that involves not knowing the answer to the question that is being asked. For example, a new MSL goes to a meeting with a thought leader, and a thought leader is asking a question, and the person does not know the answer to the question. And you stated in your book, there's a couple of ways to deal with that. Is there any particular one that you find really useful and you want to recommend in
I
case somebody find themselves in that situation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is maintaining that poise, right? It's okay not to know the answer. You are not Google. You are not ChatGPT. You are a human with, like, you're new to a company. The company might have decades of data in this particular area where this thought leader has eons of experience and you're new. Like, you're brand new to the therapeutic area. You're very smart and you're very capable, but you just don't know it all, right? So the best way through that is to maintain your poise that, yes, I am a knowledgeable human being. I just don't know that particular piece of data. So to maintain credibility with you who's asking me, I can simply say, that's a great question. I don't know that right now. I can get back to you with it and move on. Or you can say, well, that's a great question. Why are you asking? It all depends on the nature of the question itself. Some of them are very simple and you should have the simple ones, but if you don't, if you get flustered, then you create that doubt in the person's mind. But if you're like, yeah, that's a great question, I don't know it, I can get that for you, but hey, I was curious about blah, blah, blah. And if you don't get flustered, they're not even going to remember it. If you get flustered, they're like, oh, she doesn't know anything she's talking about. I don't know if I trust her. I don't need to see her anymore. I only want people that know what they're talking about. So it's all how you personally maintain that poise in the moment.
Wow, thank you. I hope our viewers, this is very useful knowledge. We are here with Cathy Andorfer, medical affairs leader. I hope people are learning something. I'm learning, despite the fact that I've read your book already. I'm still learning from the additional tips that you're giving today. One of the things that I also find interesting in your book for new MSL is the fact that they can choose the option to request their manager to to ride with them to a particular location when they're seeing a thought leader, maybe for the first time. So my question is, how many of this kind of ride is available for MSL before they start thinking, well, this person probably don't know what they're doing? How many times can you request your manager to ride with you, and in what situations?
Oh, well, it completely depends on the organization, but I think any good manager is happy to come along with their team members as often as they can, right? It helps them stay attuned to the field insights as well. It helps them understand the needs of their individual MSL. And I don't think any manager would see that as a weakness. They would see that as a strength. Thank you for welcoming me in. And there are some organizations where like the manager has to come, like they're going to be coming with you once a month, once a quarter, whatever the particular organization looks for. But then there'll be other situations where the managers are perhaps so busy doing internally focused things that they don't get to do that as often, and depending how big the team is. But when your manager is willing to come and you're willing to take them along, if you have a trusted relationship with them, it can be super helpful for the manager, super helpful for you. And ideally, if the manager is good, they'll bring an element of, they'll elevate the discussion with the thought leader. So the thought leader benefits as well. And I think it's a win-win for everybody if it's done right.
Wow, wow, thank you so much. So it's something that is always positive. That's good to know.
It should be, right, in the ideal situation. I mean, obviously, the managers in some situations are required to come out in the field with their team members on a regular cadence, and they're going to be looking for evaluating you as an MSL. Are you doing your job well? But it shouldn't feel like a negative assessment. It's just an opportunity for everyone to get better. And again, a good manager will be part of the discussion, will help elevate it. It shouldn't feel like your thought leader should never feel that this is a weird engagement, right? Because if you're making your MSL uncomfortable and you're too focused on what they're doing and you're not paying attention to the thought leader, it has to be a mutually beneficial opportunity.
Wow, wow. I think it's a good time to go into that conversation of different types of KOL, MSL interaction that can be very challenging. I think you mentioned a couple of them, different types of thought leaders, the one that is the top expert, and other types that choose to, well, that can lead to a very difficult conversation, or the one that is skeptical, that probably don't believe what you're saying. My question around that is, which one of them do you think is most common, that those situations that you painted in your book? And any ways you've actually get out of such situation in the past?
I mean, I think they're all common. I think each one of them, I know each one of them I have encountered multiple times. Team members have as well. That's why they're the four main buckets. But I think the hardest one is the one who's unwilling to access, right? Like, it's one thing to get, once you're in front of someone, then you have more ability to use your skills, the nuances, all these things that we've been talking about, but you can't use them if someone's not opening the door to you, right? So the impossible to access person to me is the first hardest one because of that reason. So it's like, how do you get super creative to get someone who doesn't answer your emails, set up appointments or anything like that? And that's where you have to get really creative. And it's kind of borderline stalking sometimes. I've done it. I had one of my favorite stories of this personally is there was a physician that I knew was very important to our company's pipeline. We were doing a new study in an area that she had expertise. She was in my territory. I'd seen her name on a million lists. Like, I knew that she was going to actually be interested in talking to me, but I couldn't get any way to figure out how to communicate with her. I sent her all these emails, I called her office, these things, and I just wasn't getting through. And I saw that she was going to be the guest speaker at a foundation walk for this particular therapeutic area. So I was like, okay, I got my company was sponsoring a booth there. So I got myself invited to be part of the company representation there at this walk. And then I figured out who she was because she spoke from the podium. And then as soon as she was done, I like ran up to her, jumped in front, I'm like, hi, I'm your MSL. I'm for this company. And she's like, oh my God, I need to be talking to you. Grabbed my phone and put her number in my phone. And like, I was so frustrated with not being able to get access to her. And it was just getting super creative and a little bit like just keeping that persistence. Like, I was not going to not meet this woman. She needed to know what I had to say. And then we built a really wonderful relationship, and the door was always open to me, but I had to get creative. So the access was the hardest.
Good. Thank you so much. Two things came to my mind from that response that you gave. The first one is that, let's say you went to that conference and you discover that the person didn't show up because they were sick or something, and you were at that conference, you spent money to be there, and that's probably the only reason why you went. How many of those situations can you have as MSL before the company start calling you and asking you what's going on? Because there could be a situation whereby you thought somebody's going to be there, they were not there, or they actually canceled on you because they were, yeah, I thought I'm going to be available, I'm not available, but you actually took the flight to another state already. Have you experienced such situation, and what is the leadership feedback on those kind of situation?
Well, it depends on the person, on the need, and on the leadership, right? I think the biggest thing is, again, it's persistence, right? And we can't make people talk to us. We just have to figure out how to work around it. So if they keep canceling on you at a conference, maybe there's other ways to get in front of them. You can drive to their office and talk to their office staff and see, when will this person be there? Can I just get 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or I'll give my business card, or write a letter, whatever it is that you can do to try to build that down. So do your best to continuously work that magic. Or if you can do some network analysis and figure out who this person is connected to within the field, you probably have a relationship with somebody who knows this person, and say, hey, you and I, KOLX, we have a really good relationship. I am trying to get in front of KOLY. Can you introduce me? Would you be willing to do that? So sometimes there's really those creative ways to do it. But from the leadership perspective, like, how willing are they to accept that you can't get in front of someone? It's very situationally dependent. I think it's, I always appreciate the effort and continuing to try. And then I think the other thing is, like, are you open to, okay, you just spent company money to get to a place and the person canceled on you. Can you do, or you should already have other people in that area that makes sense for you to engage with? It's not always the case, but there's got to be somebody you can try to get in front of that makes sense strategically for what you're doing. So it's not a waste of time.
Wow. So it's always good to have a backup. Even though you're going to see this main person, there could be people that are not, thought leaders that are not as prominent, that you can also see to gain some actionable insights from when you travel.
And of course, it is very situationally dependent. It depends on the company, depends on where you are in the life cycle, depends on, if you're like a super rare disease state, you probably might be a little harder. If you have a commercialized product, though, there's always insights that can be gained from community practitioners, learning about regional differences, things like that. So, doing your best to always be finding some way to bring value.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really powerful. One of the things you also mentioned that I also found very interesting, there's thought leaders that are not accessible, but then even when you get in front of certain thought leaders, you have to be creative. That's what you said. And in your book, you mentioned that you can use humor, and you just have to be respectful of the thought leader. That's an example. Any situation that you used that and it went well, or is there any other technique that you've used in such situation that you find out, well, I think this thought leader just probably have a wall, and in order for you to get beyond that wall, you have to use certain techniques? Have you used humor, and did it work out, or was there any other thing that you used that also worked out?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not the funniest person ever, so humor probably wouldn't be the first thing, but I think lightheartedness, right? It's always that authenticity. For me, I think when you show up in front of someone and you're authentic and you can hold your poise, even if inside you're like dying, oh my God, I'm so nervous, this is crazy. But if outside you show up as like, hey, I belong here, I am your intellectual peer, right? Like we're here to have a scientific conversation. I am smart enough to be in this conversation. I'm here to help you. I'm here to have a dialogue with you, whatever the reason is here. I belong here and I want to help you. And if you do that in a way that feels kind and authentic, people will open up to you. It may not happen immediately, and I have definitely had times where I'm like this and this is what you get, right? But if you can keep yourself like that and adjust emotionally to their needs, like what do they need? If they're like that, they want you gone in less than 5 minutes. Like, what is the thing I need to know? Why are you in front of me? Get out of my way. And if you can be respectful of that, give them exactly why you're here. Hi, da 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 da. Thank you. I'm out. Then they might let you back in next time. Or maybe somehow, even in that moment, you're like, you crack that wall, give them that thing that they're looking for. It's been amazing. People tell you, like, oh, I've only got 5 minutes. And then suddenly you're like, I got to go. It's an hour. Like, come on. You told me you had 5 minutes. That's only because you only thought you wanted to give me 5 minutes. But I was able to show you enough value that you invited me to stay longer. But I think people like that, you should always leave them hungry for more. Go before they tell you to go, always.
Wow, interesting, interesting, very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's been a great conversation. We're going to continue. One of the things that you've also said as an advice for people is when they are in the MSL position, they have to find a way to have a brand statement such that they can be able to distinguish themselves from other talented MSLs. And any experience that you have around that, any particular situation that you want to share that people have been able to, even though they're coming into a team whereby everybody's good, and that can be very intimidating sometimes, and they have to create a niche for themselves. Any particular situation where you see somebody did that successfully, or you did that successfully, and how were you able to do that?
Yeah, I think people do it even if they don't know that they're doing it. So to me, the brand doesn't have to be something that you're telling everyone, hey, I'm the blah, blah, blah. It's more like you figure out what are your passions? What is your special sauce? What do you love to do that the team needs, right? So finding that niche, and it's not always obvious at the start. And I think, especially a brand new MSL, probably better just to play around and learn the role and figure out what gets you excited. But then there'll come a point where you're like, oh, this is a thing I like to keep doing. And then if you're intentional and reflective, you'll realize, oh, maybe that's something that I could build as my brand. And for me, the brand is the thing that you use to make your personal choices, right? Oh, I love discussing MOA, like the deep science on how a drug or a disease state works. That's my thing. I love talking about it. I want to be the one that trains the team on things educationally. I want to be the one who's reading all the publications about it and translating pieces for the team. I want to be involved in resource development, slide deck creation, all those things that are all MOA all the time. So that can be your brand, like your little niche, that's your thing. And that your team members probably already know what your niche is, what your brand is. So I think that's one of the pieces of advice I give in the book is if you're struggling to figure out, well, I like to do a lot of things, I don't know, don't even know what I'm doing in this role, talk to your peers. Say, hey, if you were to come up with a brand for me based on this role, what would it be? Oh, you're our insights champion. Oh, you're you really understand clinical practice. And you're the person I always go to think about how a patient would experience their journey or to interpret how this data is going to get a physician to really understand treatment practice changes, right? Like we all have things that we just get a little bit more passionate about and others can see that. And that's the piece that's your brand.
Wow, wow, thank you. So we have to find out what we get passionate about and form a brand from that. That's something that is very clear. So in the conversation that we just have now, you talked about a situation whereby a particular thought leader said they have 5 minutes, and let's say in truth they actually have 5 minutes, and that conversation was in 5 minutes. And that made me think about the fact that when there's insight that is being received, is there any limit to the amount of time you have to interact with a key opinion leader to say you actually have actionable insight? If you interacted for 2 minutes and you have actionable insight, and if you interacted for 30 minutes, is the time a big factor in this? Or if you, or can you get actionable insight on elevator within the 30 minutes elevator pitch and put that down as your actionable insight? Is that a possibility? Any restriction around that?
I mean, a rock star MSL can, right? You know, it's all in the question you ask or the response you get, how efficient you are with your time. And it's also like how in tune your ears are from a strategy standpoint, right? So what are you trying to gain from this interaction with the physician? Sometimes that 5 minutes is really just to build the first foot in the door so you can come back when he has 30 minutes versus 5. But if your goal is more than just a hello, right? What are you going to ask him, or what are you going to say that he or she could respond to? And then if they do you have a follow-up question? Listen, and you can definitely get an important actionable insight from a 5-minute conversation. 5 minutes also is a lot longer than you might think. You say, hello, my name is, and then you've got another like 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So that's a long time. Like sometimes we go to conferences and the presentation is 12 minutes long. Like that's not a very long time, but somebody has just presented a year's worth of work or more in 12 minutes. So also give yourself a little bit more credit for what can be accomplished in a brief period of time, if you're efficient and if you're intentional and if you have a good plan.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So still in that line of having a conversation with the KOL, you said you came up with something that I've never heard before: the power of 20.
Oh yeah.
How did you come about, and what's the meaning of that?
Yeah. So and 20 is probably a very, it's intentionally long period of time. But the power of 20 is that idea of you should be listening more than you're speaking if you want to collect those good insights. But it's also based on how people speak and think. Oftentimes, you know, we say something, but you're still processing a lot more, and you probably have a lot more to say about what you were just talking about, but you're collecting your thoughts. But if you're speaking with someone and they step in and ask you a question or take you in a different direction, that stuff came and went. But if you create the space for someone with a intentional long pause, they will start talking again, and they'll keep going and they'll keep going until they're done. If you can have that poise to just hold the space for them to talk. So I came up with it to, like, I talk about how I build experiments and kind of gamify my life. So I was like, okay, I need to sit here and give someone the opportunity to speak and to really listen. So they would be talking and they would stop, and I would pause in my head and count to up to 20. Rarely do you get up to 20. Like, you pause for a second, you don't jump in right away. They will start talking again, and they'll start talking again, and you'll know that they're done because they'll be like, I'm done, or what do you think? Or they'll ask you a question, or they'll just stop. You're like, oh, that's all I have to say about that. It's fascinating. I have done it a million times. I do it with like friends, family, done it with thought leaders all the time. It's incredible. You can't use it all the time, and you have to have the poise to hold. You just sit there authentically, calmly, and try your best not to be awkward and weird. And I know it can feel that way, but if you just relax, people will fill that space.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that you talked about in your book that is still in line with communication is MSL's work within a team. And once in a while, as you stated in your book, you can find somebody who is very knowledgeable in scientific publication and considered a specialist, and they're also difficult to work with. because of the kind of thing they bring to the team. Moving from academia to industry, how has this dynamic changed for you based on your experience?
Oh, I think people are people wherever you work, right? My advice and the reason I was telling that story is that sometimes we don't understand. I think almost no one wakes up in the morning and intends to be a difficult to work with person, right? Like everybody has good reasons in their mind for what they do and how they go and do it. So, it's not on us to judge that, right? But when you do, then you create issues, right? And so just trying to give everyone the feeling of if you open your mind, the difficult person is not as difficult as you think they are. But also, if you yourself are struggling with relationships, maybe you are the difficult person. So how do you, again, take that self-reflection and think like, how is my life going? Am I having a hard time? Okay, why might that be? Or if there's a particular person you're struggling with, it's probably because you have very different ways of approaching potentially the same solution, right? So what are their needs? How are you blocking them getting their needs? Or what are the needs that are not getting met for them that you might be able to help them get met so that they suddenly are able to be a more easy to work with person? So it's all human behavior, whether you're in academia, whether you're in industry, it's humans. And I think I think that's my thing. I'm very positive and very much looking for grace from everybody, right? If you give it to them, you're going to get a lot more positivity if you give it out and give that space.
Good, good. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very great perspective to look at it. I was in a meeting yesterday and the guest was MSL, and the person clearly stated that, of course, if you're coming from academia, the assumption is that you can interact with people very well as much as people who are in the industry. So no comments. So you have a different opinion about that based on your looks and what you've said.
Well, a little bit, right? Because I think there are many people who have come from academia into industry, into the MSL role. Anyone who's successful at an MSL role has to be good with people, has to figure it out. So yeah, I think there is this assumption like, oh, you're the lab geek, you can't talk to people, you're an introvert, you belong with the microscope and the confocal and the mice, and like that's where you belong. I think that's baloney, right? I think we all have our range of skill sets, and I think that's where some people who come from academia that thrive in the MSL world, there were maybe the little unicorns in the academic world, or maybe they weren't given an environment to thrive from a human interaction standpoint. It's just sort of the environment you are in can help you grow and evolve. So I think there's a little bit of that. But it is a hurdle for someone coming from academia, especially truly bench basic science work, to step into an industry interview and say, yes, I have this very niche, detailed PhD world I've been living in for 15, 20 years, but I can come in and talk to anybody, right? Like, how do you prove that? So it's learning some of those skills to use in your interviews, some of the ways to prove that you have transferable emotional skills. It can be done. And I think anyone can make those transitions. So I don't, as you can tell, maybe I don't like to bucket anybody into can and can't, better or worse.
Wow, that's good. That's really great. So we have a question from one of our guests today. We have Dr. Abdelrahman. He's saying that what key performance index do you care for the most for your MSL team?
It's a great question. KPIs are always a interesting topic to cover when you're talking as an MSL leader, right? What we do in medical affairs, especially in field medical, is it's not a direct line between every day what we do and how the company is making a profit, right? There's a lot of nuances there, so there's a whole ton of things. But for me, I think my personal preferred KPI is insights, right? Because that's that bi-directional sharing of information. MSL stands in front of a thought leader, is able to have a conversation, scientific exchange, but they're using their ears and their brains, and they're pulling back information that will help the strategy of the company. So they have the potential to make a very direct impact on where we go as an organization, whether that's something as simple as a new educational resource or new something else that we train the team on, or is it something bigger that's going to lead to a new data generation idea, or discovering that, hey, this marketing strategy that they have is definitely not landing and we need to reevaluate that looks like. So I think there's many ways that the insights that they gather can have a direct impact on the company. So to me, those are the most important KPIs. That said, obviously you need to have interaction metrics. You need to know if you're not out there numerically, you're not making an impact. But at the same time, you could have a lot of interactions, but only 2 of them are actually getting you anywhere well. Or you could have an MSL with fewer interactions, but has super quality and they're really having a big impact on clinical practice. So I think there's a lot of different ways. But for me, it's quantity, but it's also quality. And the biggest quality piece is the insights.
Insights. Good, good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Then we also have another question from Dr. Suwana. She's suggesting, what about trying a pause for 5 to 10 seconds instead of 20 seconds in the beginning? Sometimes it can be awkward to have that pause. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think whatever you are comfortable with, build yourself up to it. But I'm telling you, and again, I think people will start talking before that 20 seconds comes. It's just, and like, I don't count anymore, and you don't have to count in your head, but it's just that idea that some length of time that feels too long is the window in which people will definitely say something. Wow. But yes, 5, 10 seconds, 3 seconds, just any way that you can have to remind yourself that silence is okay and someone else will fill it. Because as uncomfortable as you are, they are too. But they also, and it's not to be used every moment of the conversation, but if you asked a good question and you can tell their first answer they were interested, but maybe their body language is like they're not quite done, tune into that and then just make the space for them and they will keep going. And there'll be a burst and there'll be another pause and another burst. And I'm telling you, you will get to the point where they're like, that's all I have on that. Or what do you think? Trust me. Try it with like a family member.
Wow. What do you think? People always think something.
Yeah.
And that's what Facebook asks us anyway. What's on your mind? So now, and people start typing a lot of stuff that they have going on their mind. Thank you for sharing that. My question now is about your experience that you have now being a medical affairs leader. How has your view of the MSL changed from the first time you have your first MSL role to now becoming medical affairs leader?
Well, I think the role itself has evolved a lot over time since I started in it. I think there are more people doing it. There are more organizations that understand that they need MSL teams to help them, especially either in the pre-launch to launch phase or even in the early clinical development phase, right? Like the understanding of what MSLs can do to help an organization prepare for commercialization is way different than it was back in the day. So I think just the knowledge of what the role is and how many companies have worked to build and expand that capacity, that has absolutely evolved and expanded over the years. That said, I think more recent times, as companies go through reorganization and trying to figure out how to navigate what MSLs can do and what the world of AI and fit for purpose messaging and things like that, it's getting a little bit more mixed up, right? Some organizations are really pushing their MSL teams to be as close to the edge of like their messaging, right? There's a scientific messaging. How do we do that? How do we do that compliantly, but in a way that is continuing to make sure that we're having an impact on what we do versus, earlier days, it was probably a lot more opportunity just to go forth and be brilliant, right? Also, there was an evolution of the MSL role. It used to do a lot of what the role of thought leader liaisons do now. MSLs used to do things like that, speaker programs, and those have been separated out. But now sometimes the MSLs are the ones delivering the program, depending on the company they work for. There's different rules on how MSLs and commercial can work, depending on the organization. So I feel like right now, the role itself is under a little bit of flux. And it's dependent on the particular organization and where that organization is in its commercialization lifespan and how many products they have. So I think there's also some companies that are moving toward, well, I have a team of brilliant people that know how to work with people. I'll just keep moving them around from one therapeutic area to another. And anyone who's worked in this for a long time, myself included, I feel like that's a frustrating evolution, because we know how much energy and time it takes to build a relationship where that trust for scientific exchange comes in. But it's another way that companies are trying to get the most from their teams.
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is that what you call the MSL diva in the book?
No, okay, MSL diva, yeah, I know. I almost didn't include this part of the book, but I think it's important to know. So it's been fascinating to me, and it was fascinating. I experienced this more when I was an MSL early in my career, and I had come from academia, and I had been, toiling away in my own little space. And then I got into this role, and I was just so grateful to have this new adventure, right? I'm learning great science. I have the potential to make this big impact on therapeutic care. I meet with all these brilliant people, whether they're outside of the company, inside the company. I'm paid generously. Like, I feel so grateful for this. And then I would go to these team meetings, and everybody was like, grumble, 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 KPI, magic, blah, blah, blah. And they always had something negative to say. And I was just like, dude, do you understand how great your life is compared to like where I just was? And I've held on to the gratitude for that role and this whole experience has given me. And I obviously have had many colleagues who are the same in terms of that. But every once in a while, when you meet someone who's just like more what's in it for me, that's the diva. Like, do you remember where you came from? Like, so yeah, that's my diva.
Yeah. Good,
Right.
good. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. I just find that very interesting.
Yeah.
Another question still in line with the projection of your career. If you look back to the time that you were aspiring MSL, and also medical affairs leader, which one of those stages do you find most challenging?
I think each one of them had their own special piece, right? Like, as a new MSL, there's a lot of challenges because, I mean, that's why I wrote this book for people who are specifically new to the role. I hope that it would be helpful for everyone across the spectrum, and I've gotten that feedback. But the person I wrote it for was me 12 years ago when I started in the role. And you get the job, and yay, this is really fun. And then it's like, what do I do? How do I do that? Who do I, what? And then even just explaining what you do for a living to your family can be very challenging, right? So it's a strange space that you wind up in. And so I think there's a lot of challenges just on figuring out what to do, how to do it well, how to establish yourself, how to walk into an office for the first time with someone you've never met before and do your job, right? What does this mean? And so I think that was the hardest, and that's the reason I wrote the book. But then, of course, stepping into leadership, that's a whole other learning curve. Anytime you challenge yourself and take on something new, there are challenges.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's really clear. You said something about meeting people and things like that, which now we get into the less intense questions now because we're moving towards the end. When you meet people for the first time in a conference or in office settings and things like that, what are the things that comes to your mind? What do you really want to know about a person? What are you curious about when you meet somebody for the first time?
Oh, well, I hope it's obvious that I love people. I adore people. I think everybody has something interesting and unique to bring to life. So I'm curious to know, like, who are you? What motivates you? Why are you here in front of me at this moment? How did we come to cross paths? What are you worried about? What are you excited about? Like, what's your special sauce? What's your brand? How can I help you too? I think that's one of the questions I really want to know nowadays. Probably also even as an MSL, right? When you're in front of anybody, like, how do I bring you value? How do I help you? That's really at the essence of all of this.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. And that's why you're here. You said yes to my invitation anyway. So really appreciate that. So one of the things I also find interesting in your book, The Art of Excellence, you said, for my first year as MSL, I would forget to pack at least one important item per trip.
Yeah.
Is there any one that you can refer to that that was really challenging or quite embarrassing for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, anyway, it was fascinating to me because I would be like, okay, I got all my things, I'm ready to go, and then you get to the hotel and you're like, oh dang, the toothbrush happens a lot. That's an easy fix though. But I did it once where I forgot to pack a hairbrush, and I was up in the morning, just enough time to get myself ready to go. I was meeting a peer who was going to take me on a territory ride, and I didn't have enough time. I didn't have a comb, and I had really long hair at the time, so that's a how do we solve this problem? So fixing things like that. And then, yeah, I have, this is an embarrassing one, but I went to a multi-day conference at an offsite place that was kind of remote and forgot to pack extra underwear. So every night I had to wash my underwear, and that's what I did. So, things like that happen.
Wow, wow, interesting, interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So another question around that is, what is your recommendation on time management? And how did you create time to write your book, even though you're a medical affairs leader? How
Yeah.
can somebody who wants to do the same thing that you did, how would you help them to be able to do this?
Yeah, well, maybe it goes back to what we were talking about with there's more in 5 minutes than sometimes people give credit to. So I think respecting each of the blocks of time you have and being intentional about what you're going to do with them. And specifically for writing the book, I get up early, and I specifically got up early during the time I was writing the book, and I would give myself 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes. You have to write something. It doesn't have to be good, but you got to like sit down and write 15 minutes a day. And then I would use my weekends or vacation time off to like do more deep writing. But for the most part, you would be surprised how much that compound effect of 15 minutes a day, that's many, many hours of writing. And sometimes people talk about, oh, I went off and hung out in a secluded cabin for a month and I wrote my magnum opus. Like, that wasn't an option to me. I have a big, full life and I wanted to do this. And so it was just an important thing. And I carved it out in my 15 minutes installments, but created routines that would get me up and doing it and feel good about it. So I
Wow,
think if you want to do something, you'll find a way to make it a priority.
wow, thank you. It goes back to something that we don't like, routine, doing
Yeah.
something consistently. We can't get out of that. So one of the things I also want to hear from you is, it seems that your career progression is really great, and that's something that a lot of people look up to you for. But then at some point, do you ever look back and say, well, maybe I could have taken a different decision at that point? If you look back at your career, anyone that you think about?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think now that I am where I am, I don't think I would change anything. But I will say in the middle, there was a lot of times I was like, why did I change? Why am I moving? What am I doing? Right? I think we can all do that. And it's natural, it's human, because you'll never know where that other path would have taken you. And you only know what you know now. That other path could have been worse, or it could have been better, and you'll never know. But yeah, midway through my career journey, I was like, I changed a lot because I'm just a naturally curious person, and sometimes opportunities would come in front of me, and I'd like, yeah, let me try it, or let me explore and see. And then suddenly my life is off in a totally different way. So certainly earlier in my career, I wished maybe I had stuck with one single therapeutic area to truly dive into. But then at the same time, I've had this wonderful opportunity to become at least a solid expert in Alzheimer's research, in breast cancer, in multiple sclerosis, in dermatology. Like, now I'm in a completely different space in rare disease and cardiovascular disease. So it's been a beautiful mix of things. But earlier on, I was like, oh, if I just put the energy into one thing, then I could just be that professor in the ivory tower that I once upon dreamed of. But instead, I've chosen to sample deeply from multiple wells. And now I think that has helped me have a very strong foundation to be a leader, to help others make these switches and pieces like that. Which wouldn't have come had I stuck in one lane. So now it makes sense. But in the middle, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Yes, yes, yes. I have a similar experience too. My therapeutic area was oncology. Now I'm in HIV. And sometimes I still ask myself, did I make the right decision? and only time will tell. That's time will tell. Thank you for sharing that.
And only time will tell. And I think it's also, well, you made the decision for a reason. And I think sometimes in retrospect, you'll see some beautiful things. And for me, it's my own personal bias because it's how I work. But I think the more we can learn and be curious and explore, the stronger we are. So I'm excited for you.
Yes, thank you so much. And also the fact that there's always an overlap between things that we learn. For example, there's something that is called malignant HIV. So that's bringing it to a therapeutic area together. So something about therapeutic area that I also find interesting in your book is that you had a nickname,
Oh, gosh.
the Queen of Tao. Tell me about your nickname.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, a little bit of my unintentional brand story, right? So my largest academic background is in Alzheimer's disease and specifically in tau pathology. That's where I did my PhD program, and a large portion of my postdoctoral work was in that. And it's my personal passion. And I happened to go to my first MSL job, and in that, one of our first meetings, there was someone who was presenting the pipeline, and the pipeline at the very bottom is like anti-tau monoclonal antibody. And I didn't have the chance to ask a question because he was running out of time. So he kind of summed it up, and then we went to break. And so I did a little stalking thing. I ran out into the hallway. I'm like, hey, I saw that on the slide. What's that about? And then he told me, and then we were just sharing pedigrees, and it turned out that he trained with someone who knew my postdoctoral and PhD advisor very well by reputation, and his advisor and my advisor were friends, and we just started talking about our worlds. He's like, you probably know more about tau than anyone in this organization. I'm like, hee hee, you're funny. That's ridiculous. There's no way. He's like, no, seriously. And we have an opportunity. Like, I would love to bring you into my lab and talk to my team and share some of your knowledge. And I was like, that is the coolest opportunity ever. So I talked to my manager. He was like, absolutely, go for it. And I went and talked with them, and turned out they had all these fantastic anti-tau antibodies in their freezer. And it was just a great opportunity to explore some ideas with them and have that conversation. And so from that, though, my teammates and others knew that I had that opportunity. And so the tau piece just kind of got stuck on me. And I think it was my friend who's the one who helped me get the job. He knew my background because we had been in grad school together. So I think he was the one who actually labeled me the Queen of Tau, but that's how it happened.
Good, good. Very interesting story. Thank you for sharing. All right, we have a question. We are wrapping up very soon. We're getting to the end. We have a question from Dr. Abdel Rahman.
Great question.
I believe anybody is teachable if the person has the will to learn. But what are your top 3 things you look for in MSL candidates' resume?
Fantastic question, right? I think every leader has a different lens that they'll look at. So this will be my own particular bias. I agree with you. I think any job is teachable, and I really look for people who are hungry to learn or excel in it. Like, do you want to become to the rock star level? Then I'm very excited about just talking to you and learning what you can do. For me, I think it's, can you explain to me? So we're looking at someone who's never been an MSL, I'm assuming, right? So do you understand the role? Have you done your due diligence? Talk to a lot of people. Do you understand that it's not all easy? I know that sometimes from the outside, this role looks very sexy, very exciting, like everybody wants to get into it. And at the same time, do you understand the practicalities of having to haul yourself away from home every week, weekends? Like, you are on the road constantly, and that can get draining for people. Do you understand that piece? Do you understand what your primary role is? Do you understand that you will be working for a corporation that makes money, right? Like, you don't just get to go have a scientific conversation, put on your cape of science wonder, and call it a good day. Like, you have to learn how an organization works. Do you have that mindset? Do you have that desire to learn? So that's one of the pieces. And then, can you tell me your transferable skill set, right? I think that's one thing I believe in. Everybody who applies for an MSL role probably has the transferable skills, but can you communicate that, right? Like, what experience do you have in your life where you have educated other people? Are you good at distilling complex information and telling an easy story? Are you good with humans? Like, do you understand human behavior? Like, what do you know about clinicians and their mindset? Can you, especially if you're, say, a bench scientist coming into the role, do you understand what a clinician wants to know versus being so focused on an MOA and the deep science that really a physician who's really busy and just trying to do the best for their patients could care less about, right? Like, are you able to adjust and switch to people? So I'd say those are the top two. And then third one is, can you present data in a very easy way to me? And can you navigate potentially a short conversation and convince me that you're the person who is hungry and capable and excited? And I think that's also the agility piece. Are you able to come into the role, say you come into the role and the company is working on a therapeutic area. You're like a month in the job and someone says, oh, sorry, we're no longer working on that. Something's gone wrong. Whoosh, you're now doing this. Are you able to have that mindset switch? So I think those are probably the three most things. Are you resilient and agile as well?
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. I hope our viewers are learning from that, especially the aspiring MSL, from what you just shared. And these are all stated in the book that we have here. So we're getting to the end. Something that you stated in the book is that the relationship you had with your doctoral mentor, Dr. Peter Davis. Can you tell me something about that?
Oh, he was just wonderful. I know not everyone has the same experiences in graduate school. I was extremely fortunate to work for this incredible mentor, Peter Davies. He was world renowned in the tau biology space. He was one of the earlier voices talking about the importance of tau in neurodegeneration and its role in Alzheimer's disease as well. It was not a very popular opinion at the time, but he was his data was strong and he was able to continue to put forward information, and over time that hypothesis has had a resurgence of interest in it and exploration therapeutically. And it was just a joy to work with him because he loved to do science. He loved to work in the lab. He was just fun to work with because he wanted to get back in. He was, out there slicing mouse brains with me and doing all kinds of things. He would come out from his office and be like, what can I play with? How can I help? And he would go and make big buffer tanks. And he was just willing to roll up his sleeves and be part of the team. And also he was a wonderful leader and he gave us a lot of space, but he also gave us guidance when we needed it. And he was just a joyful human.
Wow. Thank you so much. I love hearing stories like that, and because there are people that have impacted my life too that I will never forget. So that's why I just want to hear your own parts of that. One of the things I also like about the book is that the book was forwarded by Tom Caravella, and I happen to follow him also. And you've also been 2 times guest on his MSL Talk podcast.
It's 3 times now.
3 times now. Wow. Can you tell me about that and your interaction?
Yeah, so I met Tom ages ago, and I think he writes about it in his forward. I was at one of my first MSL focused conferences. I was a new leader, and my VP at the time invited me to go do some growth learning. And I went to this one conference, and Tom was there. I think it was the only booth that was at this very small little conference. And he was standing by the table, and I was like, hey, introduced myself. And he's so personable and easy to talk to. We became kind of fast friends, and fast forward through many different interactions. And I was an early guest on his podcast before it was the podcast, MSL Talk. And we've just been in touch. He's one of my if I'm ever feeling down and unsure about things, I know that I can talk to Tom and he will just fill me up with like, you got this. It's all good. Like everything is good. He is a very positive person. He's very intentional about personal growth and mastery. And so I love talking with him, whether it's actually where others can hear on a podcast or if it's privately offline.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. We finally came to the end. At this point, can you tell our guests anything, any last words you want to share to our viewers, guests, aspiring MSL, or medical affairs leaders like you? Anything you want to share?
Sure. Well, I mean, thank you so much for the invitation. You know, this is literally the first time I've met you. We had no preparation for what we're going to talk about, so it's been a really engaging hour and a half. I hope everyone has learned or grown or enjoyed our conversation. I certainly have. I appreciate the great, thoughtful questions. And, I think my advice for the aspiring MSL is to really dig into that. What are your transferable skills? Use the network. The wonderful thing that I have learned in this space is that people in medical affairs, MSLs especially, are often so willing to give back. Everyone will open a door. They'll do what they can to help you. We're all we love what we do and we're happy to help others. So leverage that network, because if you're just applying and putting your application in, it's probably not going to land on the ears or the eyes that need to see it. So use the network, get someone to refer you, recommend you try that. And then, do everything, prepare to show that you are personable, that you're excited, and that you have the skill set and the understanding of how to bring fast value. That's how you'll definitely get there. Sometimes it takes a long time and you have to get really creative about how to get your foot in the right door, but it will happen. Everyone who is in this role didn't have it before. So even though the experience hurdle is a big one, it's still something you can overcome. So keep going. It's going to happen. And the other one is for actual new MSLs or any MSL. I mean, I think read my book and that's everything you need to know. And for leaders, that's probably that's going to be my next book.
Good, good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I quickly have to say this. My first MSL discussion was with my mentor, Jeffrey Lichika from AstraZeneca.
Okay.
My second was with the CEO of Medical Science Liaison Society,
okay.
Dr. Diaz-Hammer, and you had a third one. So this is really exciting. Each of those discussions are very different and just making me see different aspects of MSL. Now I can almost say I know a lot of things about Medical Science Liaison, thanks to you and every other person that I've said yes to my invitation, and also writing an awesome book like this. This is the second book I'm reading also. The first book was from the CEO MSL Society, and the books are very different. So if you have read that, don't say you don't want to read these, because they're taking things from different angles, and that's what I really like. Discussions are different, and I've learned a lot from you today. All right. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I know you're a very busy person, and even talking to an aspiring MSL is something that most medical affairs leaders don't want to do. So even saying yes, it's a lot. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate you for that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful. I appreciate you too.